Jesus over and over again creates holy space in his life. Space for him to connect with the Father. Space for him to discern what God is speaking to him. Space for him to be recharged, re-energized, all of those things. Over and over again, he creates this holy space. So I'm going to ask you again, what is usual for you? And maybe more importantly, what do you want to be usual for you? Over the next 365 days, as we step into what we hope for you will be the best year ever, what do you want to be usual for you? Here's what I want to suggest to you. If you want to have the best year ever, if you want this to be the best year that you've had so far, the number one thing that you can do to get off on the right foot is to make holy space usual. To do what Jesus did. To take some time, maybe some large chunks sometime in the year, but certainly a few minutes every day to set aside just to connect with God. That's going to be called a variety of things. This can be called your first 15, your quiet time, your Devo time. Whatever it is. If you want to have the best year ever, this is where it starts. Now, friends, you and I know, if this is the confines of our lives, the blue box around it, then there are a lot of other boxes that seek to grab our attention. I mean, this confine of our life, it gets filled up pretty quickly. I mean, there are all kinds of things that seek to fill in our lives. Quickly, our 24 hours in our day, our 7 days in our week, our 365 days a year get filled up. And while we want to focus on everything and prioritize all of it, we can't. And all of a sudden we find out that while we want something to be usual, while in our minds we would even tell ourselves that this is a usual part of my life, if you look at your life, what you wanted to be usual gets buried underneath everything else. What would it look like this year to make this the priority? Look, if you're here and you need to be convinced of that, let me just give you a couple of arguments for why this should be number one. First, this right here is different from everything else. What everything else up here can provide for you is not the same as what this can provide for you. And there are many things in here that are good. You need many of the things that can be offered through these other boxes. But there's a lot of overlap in the other boxes. But what you find here, you will not find anywhere else. What you find here, the peace that you can find, the comfort that you can find, the direction, the forgiveness, the hope, the strength, the salvation, what you can find here, you cannot find in any of these other things, even the really good ones. This is unique in your life, and therefore should be prioritized. But here's the other reason. The other reason that this has to be a priority in our lives is because what happens here doesn't stay here. What happens here in this space bleeds out into the rest of our lives. And not just into all of these things, but into every part of our lives. You see, it's unreasonable to think that we can spend all of our time in a holy space. That's why it's called set apart time. That's why it's time that's special. It's unreasonable to think that you can spend all of your time in Bible study or all of your time in prayer. You can't spend all of your time doing that. But when you are rooted in this, this bleeds out and touches and affects every other part of your life. This is why when you're rooted in this and later in that day or later in that week, you find yourself in a situation with a difficult kid or a difficult friend, you have patience that you shouldn't have on your own because you're rooted in this. If you're rooted in this, then when you find yourself in the business meeting, you have wisdom that you couldn't have on your own because it's still bleeding out of this time. You find that when you go through a time of trial, something difficult that you didn't see coming, that you have a strength that you wouldn't have had otherwise because you're rooted in this. This, friends, is where it all starts. That time apart, the time that you set aside, that you carve out of your schedule, even when it's hard, and say, I just want to be quiet and read and hear, trusting that even if it doesn't feel like it, that this is actually the most important thing I could possibly be doing. But here is the most important reason why this must be prioritized. Jesus creates that space for us. And Jesus wants this for you. Yes, it can provide things for you that you couldn't have otherwise. And yes, it will impact your life in ways that will radically surprise you. But even if those two things weren't true, here's the most important piece. God wants this for you. He knows you. And he wants you to know him. He knows what you think, but he wants to hear you speak it to him. He has provided for you words of wisdom and guidance and assurance and strength and joy and peace and everything that you need. He's provided those words for you in the Bible, and he wants that for you. Why prioritize this? Because the being that loves you more than anything else wants it for you.